like to talk to you today a little bit about Pilates. Well, Pilates is an exercise form that has been around since the sort of early 1900s, sort of 1918. It was started by a man called Joseph Pilates, and it is something that didn't really catch on in his lifetime, but is now extremely popular worldwide. And something that I've been privileged to be teaching for the last 25 years. So Pilates really starts with breathing and alignment, and then everything else is just a given from there, really. We can start getting better and more mobile and move better if we can really get to grips with breathing and alignment. And to be honest with you, even today, those are still two of the most challenging areas for me. So I'll talk to you a little bit about alignment, and when I'm talking about alignment here, it's really about what I consider coming home. Your alignment is constantly changing, so it's not something that is set in stone, and I don't want you to think about the fact that you have to try and maintain this particular alignment all day long, every day. Your body would be utterly exhausted. There really is nothing wrong with slumping. It's the problem when we stay there. So our bodies were designed to move. So the more you can move your body from place to place, the better. But if you're unsure of where to start from, then revisiting your home position, your good alignment position, is a really good idea. But of course, once we start making these changes in alignment, it really feels very strange and very foreign to us. And that's just because your nervous system takes quite a long time to change. It's not an easy process for it to go through. So please don't get too bogged down with what I'm going to be talking about today. Just revisit it from time to time. Just try and be aware more than anything, rather than trying to force yourself into the position. Rather see what you need to let go of to be able to relax in that position. Okay? So I'm going to start talking about the feet. So your feet, generally, when we think our feet are straight, they're actually not. They're slightly turned out. And I think from us sitting in chairs and wearing shoes as much as we do and not getting barefoot, we don't ever really come to a full parallel position. And for me as an ex-dancer, this full parallel position still feels really odd because I spend so much of my life in external rotation. So I want you to first of all just look down at your feet and look at where they're pointing. So you might notice that they're slightly turned out. One might be slightly more turned out than the other. Then I want you to sort of trace down, find that ankle bone on the side of your leg. And I want you to find the point just below that. And then I want you to find the little toe joint. So not the actual toe here, but come back into your foot behind the toes. There's a little bone that sticks out. So those 2 points on your foot should form a straight line. So you might want to put a sheet of paper down, or put your foot up against a floorboard or something like that. And just get comfortable with how that feels, and then match the other one. And then when you look at your feet, you might notice that they look kidney shaped, and they're probably going to feel like they're slightly internally rotated. Now I want you to just pick up your toes. So your toes should always be lovely and playful, and your weight should be going down into the back of your heel. So your heel is the most secure part of your foot, and those outer 2 toes sort of link directly into the heel, because the heel is slightly offset. It's not directly in the center of your foot. So that's going to help to strengthen your arches. It's going to help to back your pelvis up over your heels. Okay? Quite often we kind of push the pelvis forward. So if I stand side on, I'll show you. A lot of us like to slump in our pelvises, and then we get told to stand up straight, and then we end up flaring the ribs, and we're actually leaning back. Whereas if you just pick up your toes and bring your weight back onto your heels, you immediately stand up straighter. Kind of a weird thing, isn't it? And then we want to think about how the hip, the side of the hip here, sits over the side of the ankle. And then just check that you're not sort of squeezing your shoulder blades together and puffing your chest out. you want to actually let your ribs be soft in the front, because when we look at the skeleton, the ribs at the back actually sit higher than where they attach onto the cartilage in the front. So we don't want to reverse that. That way, when we're doing the ribs backwards, we're actually overstretching the abdominals and they can't work for us. So just soften your ribs. It's really just a question of allowing them to relax, and you'll probably notice a whole heap of stress coming off your neck and shoulders as well. When you first visit this position, you're going to feel like you're really slumping, but if you just looked at yourself in the mirror, you'll very quickly realize that actually all you've done is brought yourself straight. And when you are standing up straight and not fighting your body and not squeezing your shoulder blades together, you're actually going to find a lot more relaxation in your body without having to try. If you have been pulling your shoulders back quite a lot and pushing the chest forward, chances are your head has moved forward as well. So I just want you to think about, when you've relaxed your ribs, that you just want to gently do an exercise where you just pull your chin back. So imagine your chin is sitting on a shelf and it's sitting right and precarious on the very front of the shelf. You're just going to slide it to the back. So it's not a huge movement. You shouldn't feel your ribs getting involved. It's just a little slide back. I call that Elf on a shelf. So you're just going to move Elf back so that he's nice and secure, and then just release. And that can become a little exercise for you that will help to strengthen the front overstretched neck muscles and release the tightness at the back of the neck. So for those of you that sit at desks for long periods of time, that's a great exercise to do, just to realign your neck and to take some of that tension off your neck and shoulders. So the next thing I want you to focus on, once you've found your alignment, is I want you to focus on your breathing. And I encourage you to only breathe in and out through your nose. So your nose was designed for breathing. It needs to filter the air and warm it all up so that you don't get cold outdoor air into your lungs directly, and you don't get any of those outdoor irritating particles directly into your lungs. The nose actually neutralizes a lot of that. It also means that if we keep breathing through the nose, that we keep the chemical balance in our blood between the oxygen and the carbon dioxide exchange really nice and even, the way it should be, rather than hyperventilating and actually over-oxygenating the blood. So we want to make sure that all the body systems are functioning well, and our breathing is no exception. So I just want you to take a moment to breathe in and out through your nose, just becoming aware of how that feels. And then I'd like you to bring your attention to this bottom part of your rib cage. So the diaphragm sits all the way along the bottom of the rib cage, and it actually finishes on your third lumbar vertebra. So it's quite a deep muscle, it's quite an angular muscle, and the biggest part sits at the back here. So if we're flaring the ribs this way, we're actually closing our main breathing area. So I want you to think of really lifting and stretching it away from your pelvis so the front is nice and soft, and we can actually get into the back here. And then you can just place your hands around your rib cage, or you can wrap a strap around your ribs, or a towel or something, and you just want to breathe into that full circumference and then release. So you can imagine your ribs as a halo. So when you inhale, your halo gets bigger, and when you exhale, your halo gets a bit smaller, but it keeps that lovely circular shape. So it doesn't matter what size the halo is, it wants to stay the same shape. It's not about how deep you breathe, it's not about how fast or slow you breathe. I just want you to breathe enough to feel the ribs opening and enough to feel the ribs gently deflating. So don't try and force the movement, just invite the movement of the breath into your body. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that helps you to understand a little bit more on the breathing and about our alignment. Take care.